Hi, sat sri akal ji, salam, et bonjour à tous mes amis francophones. My name is Avneet Johal, and I am honored to be your NDP candidate here in the riding of Surrey Newton, which is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Katzie, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen First Nations. It's important that we think about the history of these lands, the history of our communities, and the history of this country as we think about where we want to go into the future. I'm so glad that you're watching this short video for me to introduce myself and to talk with you a little bit about the New Democratic Party's platform, the NDP commitments for this election in 2021. A little bit about myself. I've been living in Surrey Newton for a very long time. I traveled taking public transportation from my home to the University of British Columbia to complete my undergraduate studies. During that time, I was very fortunate to receive scholarships, and I also took out student loans, and I worked to help pay my way through school, and I worked at the Canada Border Services Agency in Customs and Immigration here at the Pacific Highway Truck Crossing here in Surrey. After that, I worked for the Canadian Mental Health Association for a number of years, where I was a project director and housing manager. That was an important place for me to work for a lot of personal reasons, and it was an honor for me to support people recovering from mental illness. I operated housing programs, including some right here in Surrey, where we were able to expand the number of places and spots that we had for youth programs in the riding of Surrey. For the past 7 or 8 years, I've been working at UBC, working with undergraduate students, which is another passion of mine, supporting the growth and development of young people. So a shout out to the UBC Student Ambassador team. If any of you are watching, I'm sure they're getting to enjoy this clip, and they're enjoying watching me during the course of this campaign. Now, in terms of my community involvement, I've been active with the NDP here in Surrey Newton for over 15 years, working on several provincial as well as federal campaigns. And I've often been asked to put myself forward, given some of my involvements with local youth leadership camps or with sports. People have asked, would you consider putting yourself forward for office? When this snap election was called, the phone calls came in, looking around, talking to friends and family, this seemed like the right time to join Jagmeet Singh's team and to fight for you, to fight for our families, and to fight for communities across this country. Now, the first thing I'll say about the election is we shouldn't be having an election right now. We have wildfires here in the province of British Columbia. We have all sorts of challenges abroad, and this was not the time. We have laws in this country, and those laws say that a federal election is to be called every 4 years. Plus, we all agreed in the House of Commons that we would not call an election until this pandemic was over. It clearly isn't, and we've put the health and safety and well-being of Canadians at risk. The only good thing about this election is we now have a chance to make our voice heard and to think about where we would like to see this country and our communities go into the future. And so we have important choices to be made. During this pandemic, many of us have been hit so hard. Many of our essential workers, frontline workers, nurses, doctors, other hospital staff, they have been champions keeping us safe and guiding us through. During this pandemic, when so many families have been hit so hard, billionaires in Canada have taken $80 billion since the first lockdown in the spring of 2020. An NDP government will go after those corporations that took COVID-19 wage subsidies and paid out executive bonuses and gave shareholder dividends. That was wrong. During this Liberal government's time, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has also told Canadians that this government has not collected $25 billion in taxes each year from major corporations. The NDP government will go after the ultra-rich. We will tax these corporations to make sure that they are paying their fair share, because goodness knows Canadians across this country are paying more than their fair share as they have fought and struggled to come through this pandemic. We can look at so many other areas where we have choices to make in this election. The NDP is fighting for people, and we are fighting for communities, and we are fighting for our health care. All across this constituency, when I've been out knocking on doors, meeting with families, people are telling me that the cost of living is getting very high and life is getting tough. And this was all happening before the pandemic. under conservative governments and under liberal governments. These are no accidents. These are questions of policy. Canada is the only major country left in the world where we have a universal healthcare system, and we do not include prescription medication as a part of that system. We pay the third highest fees for medication anywhere in the world. This is no accident. An NDP government is committed to supporting Canadians with the cost of their living and supporting Canadians with the cost of their medication. We will introduce a universal pharmacare program, so when you go to the pharmacy to get those needed medications, you can use your health card and not your credit card. I have met families as recently as yesterday who tell me that when they need to go get medication, they have to look at their bank balance before they can purchase the medication, and sometimes they don't. And we know that this will cause a decline in people's health, and it costs us all so much more. We can go beyond the COVID-19 recovery, and we can go beyond healthcare, and I encourage you to do so. Please have a look at the party platforms. Please have a look at the candidates that are running for election in your riding, particularly here in Surrey Newton. We have an exceptional team, fantastic professional experience, excellent community service and community experience. We have a team that is ready to serve you and to serve our constituents here in Surrey Newton. We will fight for you, we will fight for our communities, and we will fight for our families. Now, this is true for the NDP and Jagmeet Singh across Canada. And I will close by sharing this message for anybody who is watching. For families here in Surrey Newton who worry about the safety of their children, for young couples who are concerned about finding an affordable place to live or finding gainful employment that pays a decent wage, and for seniors who are worried about the cost of their medication. The NDP, Jagmeet Singh, and I will fight for you. We are the only party that is working for people, and we hope going into the polls that everybody will think very carefully about the choices they're making, and I encourage you strongly, vote for the NDP, make your voice heard.